and welcome to Ask Me About K-Pop, the essential guide for recent converts and seasoned fans alike. My name is Shannon, and I am joined, as I am always joined, by my bestest pal. Angelica, how are you today?
I am doing great, ready as always to delve headfirst into the world of K-pop.
Our favorite place to be.
Truly, truly is.
So I think today's episode is going to get pretty conceptual, if you want to...
Boo.
Boo. We're going to be talking about the concept of a concept.
What the heck does that mean, Shannon?
There's a couple of levels to this thing. I guess we're going to talk about a group's individual concept, like perhaps if this group has anything interesting about how it is set up, or if they have like a theme to what they are like presenting to the world.
Style of their identity, I guess, would be the way
like
to
what's the deal with this group? How do you categorize them? And then we'll delve a little further into like comeback concepts, like when a group puts out an album, you know, it might have a specific concept to it.
So both group concepts, sort of the general idea of like what kind of group is it? And then we'll also talk about album concepts, meaning like what kind of album are they going to put out this time?
Yeah. So like where do we begin?
I mean, I guess just in general, like we just explained our two vocabulary words. It is concept in general. Right? And we just broke it up. Group concept and album concepts. So let's start with group.
Sure.
What are some different types of groups that exist within K-pop?
I feel like if you were to zoom out of it as far as you can, there's kind of just like two either ors when it comes to groups. Is it going to be light or dark? Yeah. Or sexy
Sweet
or plain.
Or sexy. Yeah.
Like those are kind of the biggest categories that you can probably put everyone in, like in a bit, if you were doing one of those like sorting charts.
Sexy or cute?
Light or dark?
Yeah.
Because there's dark sexy and there's cute sexy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Are you kind of a tough group, or are you like a sweet one? So there's all kinds. One term that I was very excited to find, beast idol.
Yep.
That's the American translation. But this was a concept that was literally created for 2PM.
Yeah, our favorite.
They did it first. So a beast idol, like they all have big muscles and don't wear shirts a lot.
They're going to be hot. They're going to take their shirts off. And
they look like they would help you move. Like, they'd be good at.
And like usually they're going to be shirtless and glistening on their album covers. And they're fun.
Yeah. So that's like beast idol. Yep. That's like your sexy dude group.
Yeah. If you're like me and you love to objectify men, check out 2PM.
Yeah. And some other groups with like beast idol-y images would be like, I would VIX has one.
Yes, VIX definitely does. I would say TVXQ has a beast idol concept. Really any group that's going to be shirtless.
That's doing like a we're sweaty men kind of thing, as opposed to...
there are certain members of other, like there are certain members of EXO who will like rip their tops off, but it's not going to be the whole group. Right. Whereas like maybe all of 2PM would end up topless on a stage. That's not going to happen with something like EXO or SHINee.
Right. Yeah. And then I feel like the boy opposite of beast idol is another Korean term. The Korean term is godminam, which means flower boy. And that's like the Korean equivalent of like a pretty boy, nice boy.
And what's really adorable and hilarious about the fact that this concept exists is that 2PM is our beast idol group. And they have a like brother group called 2AM, which are the flower boys.
Yeah,
and like
they sing ballads
and they're very soft. They are not hot. They are not ripped.
Jinwon's very hot and very ripped, but that's not
one
the concept
of the members. Like they are, they're soft and sweet, and they sing pretty songs. Yeah. And 2PM is over here telling you that they want to make love.
Yes,
like,
exactly. You know. So those are like our two dichotomies, like when it comes to boys. And then I think the girl ones would be the sweet girl side is sometimes called fairy doll, like fairy idol. And that's again an English translation. I'm not going to attempt to butcher the Korean, but like fairies, like girls that are very cute and sparkly and are
pretty
wearing like
and
little
delicate.
skirts.
Yeah, they're going to wear cute skirts. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that their choreography is not complicated, but they're definitely going to be the ones that create sort of the more like sugar bubblegum pop.
Every fairy idol group, like absolutely 100% has a video of them frolicking in a meadow. Like that.
Like what we watched last
video
week.
that we watched last week. Like that is definitely something that happens in like fairy idol groups. Like examples of these would be like A-Pink, Oh My Girl,
G-Friend.
Yes, these like sort of sweet girls. And then I don't think there's like a term for like sexy girl groups.
But
it's a thing.
But it's a thing. Like To Anyone is a good example of like the opposite of something like A-Pink. An even better example, name-wise, would be Blackpink. Blackpink is a 4-person group that does like much more like edgier style music. They do really complicated dance moves. They dress really funky, wear like fishnets and ripped things. Whereas something like A-Pink is going to wear like very color coordinated, if not completely matching, like skirt outfits with cute pumps. And Blackpink is going to like each member is wearing like 5 different patterns, and they're all a different, like they could be going to completely different places. You would have no idea.
Someone has mesh on.
Someone's got mesh. Someone's got studs. Someone's got tie dye. Like who effing knows? So those kinds of groups definitely bring like a different type of music and also a different like clothing style as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of this, while it definitely refers to the music people are making, I think a lot it heavily leans more towards on the way that they are styled.
Yeah, their aesthetic is going to be different. That's a good word for like the concept. Group aesthetic, maybe, and then album concept is how we will differentiate. So like that, and it's going to influence, like we said, the music videos too. Like those fairy idol groups are always going to have a music video in a field, but like Blackpink and To Anyone are not going to be frolicking through a meadow.
No.
Like they're going to be
dirty
dancing.
Subway station.
Yeah, or like abandoned buildings or whatever. So yeah. So those are sort of our 4 categories.
Yeah, I would think. And obviously every group can exist in several of these categories or strictly stick to one or play around a lot. It really just kind of depends. There are definitely groups that do the same thing as long as they exist. And there are groups that try different things a lot. I feel like SHINee is one of those examples of a group that was always kind of doing different stuff.
Yeah, like, and that's, I think, is a good segue from like group aesthetic to album concepts, is that like SHINee is not a Beast Idol group by any means. They're also not really Flower Boys either. And the reason for that being that each of their albums has a different concept. Like they, made sure to write down their like Ring Ding Dong Lucifer phase, which I know are 2 different albums, but
it was close together.
Similar aesthetics because like Ring Ding Dong is sort of the song that put them on the map, but also, like very anime style. Like they all have crazy hair, and their music video ends with them like sprouting
they all grow wings.
And then there's Lucifer, where like Jonghyun is wearing like a shirtless like
it's a shirt. It's like assless chaps, but a shirt
vest. Yeah, it's like assless chaps, but it's a vest. And then like and Key's out there with his like Fifth Element haircut, where he has like half his side shaved and half his head shaved and bleached, and he's got like a weird like plastic visor
just,
on,
like shiny like wisps of stuff like flying all
yeah,
around
like
them. Like
magic, like,
and also there are
them.
Lamborghinis with those like pop-up doors,
yeah, with those like
them.
butterfly doors. Like who, like it was just bananas. That aesthetic of their concept, or that concept of their album was.
Yeah, so they
very
had
over
like
the
a
top.
SHINee anime phase, and then they also.
But then they'll come back right after Lucifer, and what's after Lucifer? Dream Girl, everybody.
Dream Girl.
And so then they're going to switch, and they're going to go from Lucifer, where they've got like all these crazy like sort of like manga style looks. And then they're going to come back from Dream Girl and they're going to be very clean cut and they're going to wear bright and colorful suits, but they are suits, and they're going to be like a completely different style of song, different aesthetic for them. So like they're a good example of a group that sort of can try anything.
Yeah, and their music has always been kind of like I never know how to categorize it.
I call SHINee a niche group because their style of K-pop is not as mainstream as something like BTS or 17 or EXO. Like they're sort of the weirder spectrum of K-pop. Like we like to say K-pop, you got to embrace the weirdness of K-pop in order to embrace K-pop at all. And SHINee is definitely on that weirder side of the spectrum.
Right. And then I think sometimes groups like fall into things and then it works really well. Like an example I can think of is there's a wonderful girl group that I've always loved called Sistar. And they always had a sexy image, like that was their thing. They wear little outfits. But at first, like one of their biggest singles was kind of like a much more like sad, kind of
like
song,
ballads.
and they had like skirts that were slit like all the way up.
And the leg dance.
Yeah, and the choreography was like all legs, and that's like kind of what put them on the map. But shortly after that, they did like a summer song, and the video was them like in bikinis and like cut off shorts, like doing a little dance. And that cemented Sistar as like the queens of summer. And so as long as they existed, which was until the middle of last year, they would put out like a crazy like summer song. So like wearing tiny shorts and bikini tops and doing like summer songs.
Some little like
was like
booty
their
shaking
thing.
song.
That became like the image that they like always presented, and they never tried to like get away from that because that worked very well for them.
But then there are other groups, like a girl group that we know of called CLC, where the company like doesn't really know what to do with them.
This is very
So
interesting.
they try out a bunch of different concepts.
Yes.
Like when CLC first started, they were very sort of like that typical image of a K-pop girl group.
They're definitely
fairy
a fairy
idols,
group when
and like
started.
they wore the little schoolgirl uniforms and had like the sweet like soft music, and because that is not a very it's not a unique or uncommon look for debut girl groups.
It's probably not your best bet if you're trying to make a big mark, because while there's definitely a market for cutesy girl groups, it's kind of the easiest thing to do. It's like the least risky thing to do, but it's probably the least profitable thing to do because it's been done over and over and over
and
over
because
again.
there are 20 other girl groups that are doing the same exact thing. So
Right.
if you want to really step outside and like be noticeable and memorable, starting off that way is probably not your best bet. But that's how these girls started. CLC, they started very cutesy, and then because that market is very oversaturated, they decided to switch it up.
Right.
And so they came out with a song called Hobgoblin.
And now this is interesting because Hobgoblin was written by and like produced, and all the videos and choreography were overseen by one of my favorite K-pop stars of all time, Hyuna. She was a member of a girl group called 4 Minute. And 4 Minute was like the edgy, like they were like the hard girl group. There's like, this one incredible video where they're all wearing like bucket hats with their names on them. And they were like kind of scary. Like that was their thing, is that they were like
a group filled with scary spices.
Yes, they were like a cool, tough group. And then after 4 Minute left, like disbanded, there was kind of like a gap for that kind of group. So CLC, they basically were like, well, let's let Hyuna write them a song. So she wrote this song, Hobgoblin, that sounds like her music.
Yep.
That kind of like clubby, like scary, like sexy, cool girl stuff. And this video was styled incredibly. It was one of my favorite releases of 2016, I think. Like,
oh, totally. Their outfits are super fun.
One of the girls is wearing a yellow bathing suit with like thigh-high
one
boots and a red like blazer, and she looks so cool. Yeah. And they have like baseball bats with razor wire on them, and they're like, and it's just
they're like here to fuck shit up. And
yeah,
and like It's about Hobgoblin is about like capturing a goblin and making him give you like
Gold.
what you want. Yeah, like giving you wishes or whatever. So it's like a fun song. Like the choreography is exciting, and they have like super hip looking backup dancers wearing like fishnets and like oversized jackets.
Yeah.
And it was a hit. Like it really did. It was.
People liked it. It was different and interesting and new. And so it was a huge disappointment that when the next album came around, they were back in the meadow in their little pinafores again. Like,
yeah, so I don't know why they made that switch back, but it is disappointing.
I will say, to be fair, I listened to their album from last year to death. Like, I loved it, but I also really wanted I wanted them to keep going in that like Hobgoblin direction, because I do feel like it's a whole, like, and I'm sure, I assume, if I could just make an assumption, that the company was afraid of Blackpink and was just like, well, we can't compete with Blackpink. But I felt like Hobgoblin and like I still feel like those are different sides of a similar corn. Yes, it's corn. Similar coin, because I was trying to say corner, in that corner of our little grid that we made, like tough, like sure. Right. But I do think that like Hobgoblin was different from like Whistle, and that there's room in K-pop for both of those things. And I wish that record labels wouldn't like chicken out all the time.
It's like, sure, like Blackpink is a phenomenon. Like Blackpink is, like we said, that sort of harder girl group, and they are super popular. But to be the only group that does something like that, like, I think that's really a shame. Like, we as the audience are missing out on having multiple groups try out these different styles. So that to me is disappointing, especially because personally I'm not a huge fan of the super bubblegum pop. So like to have a group actually try to be edgier, I found refreshing.
Yeah, and going back to that stuff is alienating for you. And I'll gobble it all up because I love it. Love it, my sweet trash. It's great. So I just like wrote down here a couple of like, I'm just going to list, and if anything like strikes your fancy or you want to talk about anything, here are like some popular concepts that groups.
Popular album
concepts that groups might use. The first and probably one of the most popular ones is a school uniform concept.
Usually when groups debut, they will somehow
It's definitely usually an early thing or an ironic thing you can do 5 years in and be like, LOL, let's get in school uniforms again. But like all kids in South Korea wear school uniforms. That's part of their lives. So it's probably like a good marketing tool. It's like unifying.
Relatable.
And also there's a company called School Looks, SKOOLOOKS, School Looks. And they every year like partner with a K-pop group or two to do basically like they'll write a song just to do like a showcase of this year's fashions. And they really are like the coolest uniforms ever. I assume only like the richest kids' schools like actually buy these School Looks uniforms. I doubt that everyone else gets to wear such cool uniforms, but that's like a thing. Partnering with school or just having school uniforms gives like a fun, innocent image. And like we said, it's like unifying because everyone went to school, everyone wore a uniform.
But I will say that as an adult, I hate it when the groups get into their school uniforms because it makes me feel real old.
Yeah.
And I am not trying to watch little boys in school uniforms sing and dance about how pretty I am. Like, put on a suit.
Yeah, that's on my list. Suits is a concept. It really is.
And it's a good one. That's a favorite of mine, I will say. No one rocks a suit like Shiny does. But again, that's my ultimate bias. Suits are good. I like them in suits. Girls in suits too. Like Mamamoo did suits for one of their recent comebacks. A song that I always mispronounce. In my head, I think of it as Dekomi, but it's Dekomani or something like that. It's like a French word. I don't, whatever. It doesn't matter. They wore suits and they looked fucking gorgeous.
Yeah. So suits as a concept. Also, a really popular one is retro / vintage. And you can go all the way with this and be like real vintage, like Mamamoo does, where they'll do like cute like 60s dresses with like.
Yes, I think we recommended their debut stage, and that they had sort of, when they debuted, they did sort of like a mod look, like 60s mod look, sort of like Twiggy inspired. And then I wrote them down as well to bring up their retro style, because then they also had like Piano Man was like 1920s style, and they did like a tap number in that choreography includes tap dance.
And Aoop is like
Aoop
60s.
is
It's like Mad
60s.
Men dresses.
Yeah. They're wearing like high-waisted capris and like little sweaters.
And beehive hair and stuff. But also, like, it doesn't have to be like that old of retro, because like Shiny did a straight up 90s concept.
Yes, and it was when they went on shows, they said our album is retro concept, but it was 90s. So
yeah,
like
they released the album on cassette tape.
They released it on cassette tape. They wore like gaudy chains with super bright colored suits. Their music video for the lead single off that album, which was called One of One, is it looks like one of those old Gap ads where like everyone's in a white room and like dancing. You remember those Gap ads? Like that's the music video for One of One. It's great. So retro really covers like any previous decade.
Yeah. Another one is party. Like just like whether it's in a club or like a house party, that's definitely like a thing. Like this is a party concept. Other ones, fantasy, magic, futuristic.
Yep.
Murder is a very common theme in comebacks for some reason.
That's actually, we can even bring that slightly back to the group concept or group aesthetic, because my favorite murderous group is Red Velvet. They have a variety of music videos that include murdering boys, and I love it. But we just recently discovered, because we were watching all these like Red Velvet things, and you and I were sort of wondering like, how come they're always like so murdery? And then we, like, upon researching, discovered that that's their group concept, is that they're supposed to look really sweet with, like, holding a knife behind their backs, essentially. Like, they're the girl that you're going to fall in love with, and they will ruin you. Yeah. And that is just the best. I think that's my favorite. The
red
girl.
and the velvet.
Right.
It's like all those things. And they, one of the things that, like, nobody really noticed until their last comeback, where there was, lots of proof of it, is when they put out their album teasers. We're going to do an album episode. We'll talk about that. But they never smile. And that's like a thing. They just like sit with their legs straight out like little dead rag dolls, and they don't smile.
Because they're going to
murder you. So yeah, that murder is like definitely a concept.
I want to back up a little bit to get into the fantasy concept, because we have, we mentioned that earlier. I would say like Ring Ding Dong was sort of like Shiny's fantasy concept, and then like Lucifer was their futuristic one. But one group that has a very, very, very complicated concept rooted in fantasy and is a concept of many of their music videos is EXO.
Okay, great. I definitely wanted to spend a lot of time talking about this, because there is nothing else
quite like
to compare. So if you look at the concept of EXO on paper, if you were selling it as a business, it's very simple, but it had never been done before. We're going to take a group, 12 boys, 6, and we're going to split them 6 and 6. And one of them is going to sing in Mandarin, and one of them is going to sing in Korean, and they're going to sing the same songs, and they're going to promote simultaneously. Like, that's the business idea.
But they're going to promote separately.
Yes.
Like, we have EXO K, and they're going to sing in Korean, and they're going to have EXO M for Mandarin, and they're going to sing in Mandarin, and they will promote separately. They will, singing the same songs, just in different languages, and then they will like tour separately sometimes, and then they will come together for like big stadium world tours and have like certain songs that they perform together. And the albums will be together as well. Like both XOM and K are on the same album, but like you get essentially two versions of every song.
Yeah, so that's it from a aerial, like
from a business
perspective. And it is that's a lot of concept. Like most groups are just like, it's 5 boys, they're singing, what do you want? Like,
but this one is like, we're going to be an international group, and like that's why they're going to be so successful, is because we are able to capture these 2 huge markets at once.
Yeah. So
that wasn't enough.
That wasn't enough. Lee Soo-man has to be as extra as possible at all times.
Who is Lee Soo-man?
Oh, he is the founder of SM Entertainment.
Okay. For the listeners.
Where the SM comes from. And rumor has it, there are so many rumors about EXO, and so who knows if any of this is true. Sorry if I'm repeating like lies, but basically people have said that while he was studying at Cal State Northridge, there was an eclipse, and he like in the late 80s, and he like had the idea for this group.
So we talked a little bit about EXO, or I know that I talk about them a lot. They're like my guilty pleasure. But they were sort of the group that I credit explaining K-pop to me. And the reason for that is because their music videos are so elaborate. Mm-hmm. The concept of EXO is that they are from exoplanet, right? That's why they're called EXO, EXO. Mm-hmm. Exoplanet, they came to Earth.
Well, no, first they were on exoplanet, and they were all forces. All 12 of them are different forces, and they protect the tree of life.
Yes.
And to protect the tree of life as best as possible, they had to split into 2 groups and live on separate worlds where they see the same sky. And when the planets align and they can see each other, like then they unite to protect.
So that is why they explain, like, that's their reasoning for having, like, XOM and XOK, right? They like, live on opposite sides of the mirror, I guess, is, like, the way that you could think of it, and the way that they visualize it in some of their music videos.
Yeah.
But so each of the members has a power. Like, one of them is teleportation.
Wait.
Oh, you got them all.
I got them all because I wanted to see, as the person in the room who learned all of the names of EXO first, because we were not.
Can I name all of their powers? Probably.
Yeah, that's what I want to see. I'm going to see if you can connect power to boy.
Okay.
Because I don't.
Cool.
So, okay. Earth.
Oh, shit. You stumped me.
We can come back to it.
Come back to Earth.
Flight.
Now
this is original 12.
Oh. Original 12 was Flight. I don't know. Luhan?
No.
Oh, damn.
We'll come back to it. Teleportation.
Kai. That's
Got
easy.
it. Air.
Dio?
No. Younger.
Younger than Dio, but it's... is it Sehun?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Fire.
Chanyeol.
Water.
Suho?
Yes. Healing.
Lay.
Time. It's a former member.
That's what I was thinking. Is that one Luhan?
No.
Oh, Tao?
Yes.
Okay.
Light.
I know that Chen is lightning.
Okay, good. I'll check that one off.
So light. Is that one Dio?
No.
Damn.
Remember the plot of the Power video. The person with light got left behind.
Oh, right. Baekhyun.
Frost.
That's Schumann.
Telekinesis.
Is that a former member?
Yes.
I think that's Chris.
It's Luhan.
God damn it.
Guessing the whole time. Okay, so we still need to decide between Chris and Dio who's Earth and who's Flight.
Chris is Flight and Dio's Earth.
There you go. So yeah, they gave these kids powers, and poor things.
These adorable babies have to reenact their powers on almost every variety show they go on. Still to this day, now they only have 9/8 debatable members. Like, they still have to do it. And it's my favorite thing in the world when someone asks Kai to show them teleportation, because he gets this look on his face like he wants to crawl into a hole and die. And he's just like, okay, I'm going to go from here to that seat over there. And then he just goes, look over there, and then runs. in the other direction, and everyone like lovingly plays along and is like, and then they turn back and they're like, wow, how'd you get there? And it's so dumb. And I love it.
I love it too.
I love it. But so they got to so they work their sort of like power concept in a lot of different ways, including in one of their more recent releases from this year, a song called Power. And the music video is like a very complex like comic book, essentially, where each one gets to like use their powers to defeat this like robot monster.
Yeah, it's very funny. I gotta say, hilarious. I made my husband. So this morning I was to research for this episode. I pulled up the EXO Mama video. It's their debut. It's not their debut video because they put out two pre-debut tracks. Like they were really trying to hype. Because I'm sure that a lot of money went into this. Like this was, this was a big deal. Like nobody had ever gone this far with trying to, put a group together. So their first music video called Mama is like 8 or 9 minutes long. It's so
because
long.
It's a short film.
It starts with like an animated intro that explains like we just said, the Tree of Life. So I was watching that earlier this morning and my husband walked by and then he like stopped and he was like, what are you watching? Like I saw the reflection of it. I need to know. So like I rewound it and like showed it and we were like talking about EXO as a concept. And then we were like 3 EXO MVs later. Like we were watching Coco Pop and then suddenly he like stepped away and he was like, I have to remove myself from the tractor beam and like get away. Cause we were saying it's like that episode of The Simpsons where they go to Japan and Bart like has seizures from watching the robot cartoon. Like watching K-pop videos like puts you in this really like focus. Yeah. So he compared it to a tractor beam. But in their first video, they explain
each
this
one
ridiculous
of their powers.
long concept. But then the universe just continues to expand every year. Like there's a universe where they're like comic books and there's a universe where they wear gnome outfits for some reason. And there's a universe where they're baristas and there's a
they apparently exist in like parallel universes.
Yes.
So like their most recent album was like EXO Cafe Universe because I don't know why.
Like a fan fiction website. This is the AU where they are
they're all
the coffee shop
baristas
AU.
or whatever. Baristas. I don't know. And so like the song Universe is about like I'll search the universe for you because I'm not over our break. Like it's a breakup song, right? Like I'll always love you. I'll search the universe for you. But the music video is them making coffee.
Yeah.
In aprons. And I'm like, why?
Yeah, I don't know. So
I mean, they look real pretty, but it's inexplicable.
Yeah. So that EXO is an example of like the farthest that a concept can go. But did you have information about NCT? Because that's SM's new project into making the most complicated group ever.
Exactly what I was going to get into next. So if you were a good student of mine and you did your homework, then you watched NCT U's Seventh Sense, which is a great music video, great song. But NCT is a very interesting concept for the group. This is not a concept in the sense that like they have a plot. It's a business model really. And I like to use the analogy of like a chain restaurant. So NCT is like the name of the groups, right? And so, but the concept of NCT, and it took me literally weeks to like fully research and understand what it meant because there's NCT U and there's NCT 127 and there's NCT Dream. Okay, so there's 3 different groups: NCT U, NCT 127, and NCT Dream. And the concept essentially is to have a branch of NCT from different regions. Right? So like NCTU represents one part of Korea. NCT Dream represents a different part of Korea. NCT 127, yet another region. And so it's so that's why I call it like a chain restaurant, right? Because it's like a franchised group. Like they all share the name NCT. They, with the exception of like 1 or 2, do not share members. They do not share albums. They do not share the stage. Like they are separate groups, but they're seemingly needlessly united under this name of NCT. And they make very different music. Like NCTU is that Seventh Sense. They're like a little edgier. NCT Dream is like
they're all underage and they just sing sweet baby boy songs.
And like the most bubblegum pop. Like they literally have a song called Bubblegum or something. Chewing gum, whatever. Whatever. It made me nauseous. It was like so sweet. I think I got a cavity just watching that music video. I didn't even watch the whole thing. It made me feel gross. But they have like different. I don't even understand why it happens. It's, I guess, just like the business model of trying to make it regional and like so you can have your favorite NCT. I don't know. It's weird. It's
they
a weird
also don't.
idea.
Aren't they also like significantly staffed by Chinese kids?
Yes, NCT does have a lot of Chinese members.
Okay.
They do.
Because that's like your way to get.
Which is even a weirder concept then to have them be Chinese members. Because they're representing regions of Korea.
Yeah, but it says on Wikipedia that their intention is to debut subunits in China, in Japan, in Thailand, in Vietnam, in Indonesia, like to try to make NCT like. I don't
like almost a global like a McDonald's, right? Yeah. Like there's an NCT for like Japan has its own NCT, Vietnam has its own NCT, like Thailand has its own NCT, and the idea is that the members of that group are going to be for that region. Yeah. So it's really a ploy to get more international fans.
Yeah, which is a thing that like SM has been trying to do for a really long time.
Since their conception of EXO, really.
Well, actually first Super Junior M was their first attempt at that, which was a Mandarin group. That's where Henry is from.
Oh.
Where they just like got 5 boys to sing in Chinese and they were like, you're called Super Junior M. Like they weren't Super Junior members singing in Chinese. They were a new group with the Super Junior branding.
Oh, so they've tried this
a couple of times. So Super Junior M was first and then they tried EXO and it did not. We'll get into it in our contract disputes episode, but that did not end well. And then I guess NCT is their new attempt at this to have like a huge. Right now, NCT has 16 people associated with it.
But they are not. That is not to say that there will ever be 16 people on a stage representing NCT. It's like those 16 people are split up into different groups.
Yeah, but isn't there like one? Like, isn't one of the poor boys in every single one of them?
I know for a fact that there is a shared member of NCTU and NCT 127. I do not think that member is in NCT Dream.
Okay, you're right. It looks like, and you and 127 have both Tae and Mark in them, but none of the Dream boys are in anything else.
Right.
Because they're all little. They're so little.
Yeah.
They're little boys. So I think that's like, their like security deposit or whatever is that like half of this group is like under the age of 18. So like they can try to figure out what to do with them for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, because the NCTU members are like in their 20s, like regular age,
quote unquote
regular age. But Dreams, like they're all like little bitty babies. Yeah. So, wow.
Yeah, so they're weird. They're a weird concept. It took me a long time to wrap my brain around that one.
Yeah. The only other example I was thinking of, because it's hard because most groups really do just kind of throw whatever at the wall and see what sticks and like figure out their thing. There's usually not this amount of backstory or whatever put into groups. But the only thing I could find that was kind of similar, so in 2017, this group called Dreamcatcher debuted, but they had existed since 2014 as a group called Minx, M-I-N-X.
Okay, never heard of either. But
and I'm guessing
boy group,
girl group. There are 7 of them.
Still 7 in Minx and 7 in Dreamcatcher.
Yep, nobody is listed as former.
So just an actual rebrand of the group.
An actual rebrand where I'm assuming that Minx was probably like standard girl K-pop. I don't have anything to confirm or deny this, but I guess it didn't work. Whatever it was not working. So they completely rebranded and came back in 2016 as Dreamcatcher. And the only way that I can like describe Dreamcatcher's whole thing is like J-pop Twilight. Because
so vampires?
Yes, it's absolutely like trying to do that kind of like baby metal sort of thing where they're still doing like standard girl group dances in little like school uniforms, like the kind of stuff that you expect.
But is it
there's
like
in the background, and they're like, yeah. So,
but are they like baby metal in the sense that it's like Hot Topic schoolgirl outfits where they're like black and red plaid with like lots of buckles and things?
Yes. So they're like goth vampire, pixie,
are they
dream girl.
Literally supposed to be vampires? Or is that just like the sort of aesthetic?
I think,
that their
debut album as Dreamcatcher was called Nightmare. And the video was like they're in the woods and it's like strobe lights and like it's a whole thing.
I'm fascinated. I'm utterly This may be my new favorite concept. Screw you, EXO. Like I'm moving on at last. No, I'm not. I'll never.
Yeah.
Will.
So like that Dreamcatcher was definitely like that's
amazing.
That's a concept. That's what I want more of.
Like I'm not gonna lie, I love it when a group has that like super ridiculous specific concept. Like give me Hot Topic vampires. Give me murderous, cute ladies. Like, give me boys with superpowers. I don't care what it is. Like, I want it.
Yeah, I'm pretty much down for everything.
I want the characters.
I was going to ask you, like, just opinion-wise, do you have concepts that you tend to, like, lean towards, or are you just sort of down for whatever? Or do you have a favorite concept, like, that you can pull off the top of your head that you remember enjoying?
Favorite concept, honestly, is probably when like sexy boy groups do the grown man suit thing. Like I know I just said I love the fantasy shit, but I also like a good example, and I know I talk about 2PM a lot, would be their album Gentleman's Game. Because that also has like sort of a retro style to it. It's very it has like jazz elements and R&B to it that like hits the love of R&B that I have like in a perfect way. And so I just love when dudes are going to get out there in like a 3-piece suit, but like it's kind of like the top buttons of their shirt are undone and they're going to like dance real sexy. That I love. Love when a group does a real grown up.
Because they look like they have money.
Yeah, they look like they're there to just treat you, girl. Like, gonna take you out on the town. So I love that. I love when boy groups do like grown up suits. But I also really love that. I love when girl groups try to do something harder, or like I just like it when groups sort of break out of their typical image and try something new. I think that's always fun.
That is always
fun. Like when A-Pink did their more grown up. Wasn't it Love?
It was Love. It was like their first time. I remember I was so excited about this because like I love A-Pink and I always have. And yes, they did start out with a very innocent like cute girl image, and when they reached the age where all of their members were legal age, like that usually is like a turning point for groups. Like what are we going to do now? Are we going to try and get an adult audience with this, or stay with our thing?
Right.
And instead of doing what usually happens and sometimes destroys groups, which is like going full sexy and that kind of scares people.
It's too much, too fast.
A-Pink did this thing where they were all in like white pantsuits.
Yeah.
Like really well tailored pants. And they just looked so grown up, but like in a really specific, like
classy and like sex. That's what I love, a classy concept. Classy, sexy.
I also love like a straight up trash concept. like when like Hyuna had this music video a couple of years ago. What was it for? Roll Deep. Roll Deep. And they wore like those spring breakers, like pink ski masks with like a real boobalicious top. Like I just love when
she has
people,
all the backup dancers on leashes.
Yes.
Like it's pretty nuts.
I love that. I love the kind of music videos that get banned from TV because I like people who are pushing some boundaries. Like because as an international fan, like I'm not going to be like,
we're not clutching any pearls over here when we have.
So like, I love it, and I love when people get mad. Like Hyuna making people mad is probably my favorite.
And that's what
thing
Hyuna
about
does
her.
best. I mean, we're talking about group concepts, we should talk about Troublemaker.
Yeah, Troublemaker. So that was like a little duo thing that lasted for a hot minute. That was like Hyuna from 4 Minute, and now I can't remember which guy from Beast, but one of the guys from Beast.
A scrawny one.
Yeah, they decided to do like a duet subgroup, that's what they're called when groups break off into their own albums, called Troublemaker. And the first music video that they did was like a James Bond, like spies in a hotel kind of thing, like sexy. And they also caused a huge stink at the one of the end of the year award shows that year because they made out on stage at the end of their song, and everyone was so scandalized.
Oh, like picture Britney making out with Madonna, like that level
that kind of
scandal. Like, oh my goodness, everyone is offended.
But it was great. And then their follow-up music video had, I was going to bring this up as like a concept that makes me roll my eyes. What is the concept of the the Troublemaker Now video? They're like a kind of Bonnie and Clyde. They live in an Airstream trailer and they fight and they slap each other in the face. And then at the end,
one of them strung out on drugs or something.
Yeah, and then he makes a bad deal and someone hands him a paper sack in the alley and there's a human hand in it. And then like, I think he disappears at the end of the video. Like you're supposed to assume that like his hard life caught up with him or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, Troublemaker was fun because everyone's afraid of doing co-ed stuff, and like we can get into why.
And that's an
time.
interesting subgroup because the members had two different, or the members of Troublemaker were not originally from the same group because there's other groups like I'll talk about EXO forever. I'm sorry. But they have a subgroup called CBX in which 3 of their members like release an album like just the 3 of them, and they have a different style of music. That's another example of like retro style. Their concept is very they have a lot of like disco elements in their songs. They're super cheesy. I love it. I just eat it up.
Yeah. I would definitely love to do a subunit episode sometime because I think that's a magical thing about K-pop that like, maybe could have saved some American groups if it was that thing. Like there's no need for Justin Timberlake to break off and go solo because people can do subgroups or solos, like, and they don't have to leave their groups.
Yes, that is we'll get into that in another episode. But yeah, like there's so many examples of specific members from groups releasing solo albums without leaving the group themselves.
Yeah, you don't have to.
You release a solo album and 3 months later, you're releasing an album with the group as well.
Yeah. That's great. So yeah, we could talk about this all day, but we don't want to like, take up y'all's whole day. We're trying to keep this podcast at a reasonable timestamp. So I think it's time to play our new game that still doesn't have a name.
K-pop Random Play.
All right. So we're going to get our random number for this week's group. Yay. Okay, this week we got Rania.
Oh, fun. We actually know who they are.
We know at least one of their songs.
True, one of their songs. Which I did love that song. It's called Demonstrate. I kind of hope that that's the music video we end up watching. So as always in this segment, we will look up a group that perhaps we don't know anything about. We're going to quickly scan their Wikipedia page, and then we will go to YouTube to find their most watched music video. So it looks like we've had some member changes in this.
Yes, definitely. I know that's a fact. Like, whoa.
They have more former members than they have current members. Holy shit.
Yeah, this is a group that has been through some stuff. I remember hearing about this last year.
Wait, it looks like none of their current members are the original debut members.
Nope. Yeah, it doesn't look like that at all.
Wow, they have, so that's really strange. I've actually never heard of a group like that before where they have the same name, but literally every single one of their current members, none of them debuted with the group. So the original group debuted in 2011. They're still around today, but they have 5 members currently. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 former members.
And
none
one of the
which,
former members is this girl.
Oh, she's not Korean?
No.
Oh, she's from Kansas.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Alexandra Reed, how the heck did you end up?
She went to Plano High School. Does she know my husband? No,
wow, we'll have to ask him.
That's so crazy.
Okay, she came back how?
I don't know.
But third and final member in 2015. So she was not an original member. That's very interesting. We'll have to look her up later.
Yeah. But that's one thing I know about this group is that they had like a non-Korean member and that their last comeback, she wasn't there, or like it was a big deal as to like who was there. Because they used to just be called Rania or Rania. Rania is how it's written in Korean. And then they became BP Rania. So I don't know if that's to try to
I wonder what the BP
delineate
stands for.
Between the two.
Well, now that they have
iterations
all
of it.
new members, like, I mean, I guess you should come up with a different name. What a weird... See, this is why K-pop is so interesting and complex, because, like, the groups don't always stay the same.
Yeah.
It's really weird. So are we going to... So knowing now that they have this, like, two different... Are we looking up Rania or BP Rania?
Well, what I was going to pull up is, like, the song that I know because our dance teacher plays it for warm-up all the time, which is the Dr. Feelgood song.
Oh, okay, sure.
That has a lot of views.
Is it their most viewed?
Let's find out. No, something called Pop 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 from 6 years ago is their most viewed video.
Well, shouldn't we stick with our rules?
Yeah, we should. So let's see.
Pop, pop, pop.
Let's press. If you're watching along with us, we're press and play right now. Okay, they're in.
Okay, currently 7 members in this video. They've got canes. Ooh, that turned into light sticks.
Okay, they're in one of those like K-pop endless like warehouse glowing.
Sexy.
Okay, yeah.
Oh my. All right, so this is definitely a girl group that has an edgier, sexy concept to them. Look at those pants.
Wow.
Holy cannoli, those are some bad. What is that hair?
Yeah, she's it's
like 2 little rolls on top of her
but
head.
not like cute victory rolls, like weird ones.
No, like she looks like a weird pastry. That is not a good look for anyone.
Well, I don't want to be a hater. We're trying to be cool, but like this is not the tightest choreography I've ever seen.
It's not a lot of choreography in general. It's mostly a lot of like body roll here, body roll there. Wow, what bad pants
So
they
many
have
bad
in this.
pants in the pants
What are
sections.
those? What?
Ew.
Oh my god, they're like neon green and yellow.
But they're like paneled where there's like a different
They have,
zebra
like,
in the
zebra
front.
print. And
Ew.
those are not glittery on the front and the back.
And those shirts fit poorly.
yeah.
I don't like. I'm upset at what they're having to wear.
All these girls are cuter than this. You deserve better. Honestly, like, this song is boring. They have better songs. I'm sad that this is their most popular one.
And it's from 6 years ago.
So, like, possibly none of these members are still in this group.
I mean, according to that Wikipedia chart, I think that's the case.
Yeah. So this isn't even really a good representation of this group today.
But it's historical. We're
Yeah.
learning things. But this is very 2011. Like, if we go back to 2011, this fits right in with what was happening at the time. So,
Yeah.
but there isn't really anything to make it stand out, which is why I feel like that's usually if you're looking at a group and they've had a crazy amount of member changes, it's probably because they are not making any money.
Yeah.
And they're trying to like get rid of people to or
Trying
fix
to
it
figure
or
out what's gonna work.
Yeah.
But this is so silly. Like, these girls are having to use these light sticks as canes, and they're too short to be canes. Oh, they just
They
turned
just
into
puffed
smoke.
into dust like when Voldemort dies. Like,
That
whoa.
was a surprise. That was a
All right.
surprise.
Okay. So that's
I would recommend, if you're going to look up that group, Pop was a little boring in my opinion. I think their song Demonstrate is way better.
Yeah, it's totally different in like every way. And the only other song of theirs I know is called Dr. Feelgood, and that's also like old-timey, like it's old-timey K-pop.
But I like that song. That song is fun.
So those are some other, at least in this group we have something to like recommend otherwise.
We actually knew who this one was ish. We knew their name.
Yeah, but it seems like there's a lot here that, you know, like there's a lot of history, a lot of changes, a lot of things going on. But they are still listed as a present group. They have not disbanded despite
having an entirely new lineup.
Interesting. So that was another week of random K-pop, whatever this segment's called. We did it. All right. Angelica, do you have a recommendation, or should I start with weekly recommendations this time?
You could start. I started last time, but don't take mine because I know that we have the same one.
Okay, then I will take a different one. Okay, I'm going to make my recommendation the music video for Ending Credit by Jung-hwa. This song came out a couple of months ago, like a month or two ago now. Jung-hwa is like I think her best allegory is like she's Korean Kylie Minogue. Because she's always made like cool dance music, and she's in her late 40s and she's still like rocking it so hard.
Oh yes, this is a great recommendation.
And the song is incredibly 80s sounding. It's that like really bassy synth stuff, that like Stranger Things thing that's like going around right now. But the music video is like her alone in a theater, and she has like a giant perm and all these boy backup dancers. And
she's wearing like a long sleeve leotard and dancing in front of the mirror chorus line style. Yeah. And she just looks phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a really good song. I like love jamming to it. And I think that's definitely an example of like a cool concept aesthetic of this like 80s theater thing, and she's great, and I love that song. So that's my recommendation this week. Angelica, what's yours?
I love that you made that your recommendation, because my recommendation is also a female solo artist. Her name is IU, just like the letters IU, and she's been around for a long time. She is not in her 40s. She's like in her 20s, but she has been around for a long time. She's always been a solo artist. She and like your recommendation has sort of a retro concept, and I'm recommending her music video Last Night's Story.
Last my favorite
night, like singular night story, which is a really adorable like retro style concept. It's sort of like 60s, and it's basically about a guy who stands her up at the club, and so like the chorus is like, last night I started to dislike you, and it's a really adorable. She has like these two backup dancers in suits that like do super goofy
little
dance
bouncy
moves,
dance.
And then like she sort of gets like more and more disheveled until she's like crying on the floor of her apartment eating cheese puffs, and like,
she's dressed like Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's, like with the gloves and the black dress, and she's like pouting.
And like the delivery guy is like comforting her. It's really hilarious and like tongue in cheek, and it's a really good example of a very stylized music video. A good example of that album concept idea.
And it's definitely a good song. One of my favorites from last year for sure. It was really fun, and definitely a different sound than your like typical K-pop
and
song.
Very different from your typical K-pop, and also very different from her typical style.
Yes.
Like she does a lot of ballads. She does more like sort of indie style K-pop, I guess. Like she's not the typical K-pop star.
But
she's a very different style. Yeah, but she's hugely successful. And this was sort of a departure from her regular concept.
Yeah, definitely way more stylized than normal. So yeah, that's great. IU Last Night Story.
And as always, we will put those links and all the links you need to anything that we watch or mention in the episode on our website.
amakpoppod.tumblr.com, or our Twitter at amakpoppod. Or if you need to send us an email. We would love to get an email from you. amakpoppod@gmail.com.
Yeah, send us questions and recommendations, opinions. We just want to talk to people.
And we haven't quite decided what we'll be talking about next week, but I can tell you for sure that as of this episode is playing right now, the Olympic opening ceremonies are in 2 days. So we will. it's basically impossible that there won't be any K-pop in these opening ceremonies.
Oh,
so
I'm sure K-pop will be like the headliner of this opening ceremony.
So we'll have things to talk about. Yeah. So we'll
Suho
definitely
is like the mascot of this Olympics.
Yeah, so something's going to happen. So we will definitely be back with Olympics talk up top next time, and then we'll find something else fun to talk about as well.
Yeah, we haven't decided. We've got so many different ideas.
I know, it's hard to decide. So if y'all have any opinions, if anybody has something you want to hear about, we'd be happy to take suggestions for what to do next. Otherwise, we'll just pull something off of our list of to-dos. But thank you for listening. As always, we appreciate it, and we love you very much. Go listen to some K-pop and have a good week.
Bye.
Bye. Jonghyun, you're our inspiration.